Hi, this is Nancy Yearout, and welcome to my show, High Road to Humanity. In every episode, I tell you powerful true stories filled with great wisdom that you can use in your own life as you strive for a higher road to travel. My featured guests will have their own unique stories to tell that enlighten your mind and your soul. So kick back, relax, and learn the secret to success when you take the high road.
First touch, strong connection, it lays deep in your soul.
Hi, this is Nancy Yearout, and welcome to High Road to Humanity. And guess who's here today? Lynn McKenzie's here, and she's got this book. It's called Bark, Neigh, Meow. And you know what she is. I call her like the animal whisperer. She can connect with animals. So I know we've got a lot of animal lovers out there, and I want you guys to make sure that you share this show because this is going to be a good one, how we connect with our animals. And she's going to tell us all about the spiritual side of our connection with animals. And so this is going to be a really good show. So share it with your friends and remember to subscribe to my channel. It always helps. Hey, listen, I'm going to read one quick thing here that I saw that I thought you all should hear. It says, this is a headline. I think this was NBC. What breakthrough infections mean for COVID vaccines? And this is just, check this out. A series of recent coronavirus infections among vaccinated athletes and government staffers has focused attention on an apparent rise in so-called breakthrough infections. But while cases involving fully vaccinated people have increased in recent weeks, experts say there's little reason to worry. And so this goes on. So I guess my confusion about this whole thing, and again, I'm not giving medical advice, is the people who have gotten the vaccine, why are they still getting infected? So this whole thing is just bizarre, and I'm watching it unfold. And I just think everybody needs to be aware and keep an eye on what's happening out there with humanity. Just, be careful. You guys be really careful and keep your eyes wide open. Now, one thing I want to say before I bring on my wonderful guest, Lynn, is that if you want a psychic reading, go to my website, nancyyearout.com. For the month of July, I'll be sending you my book, Wake Up, the Universe is Speaking to You, complimentary for booking a psychic reading with me. So I'm pretty excited about that. And Lynn, I'm going to read your bio. Lynn's here today to talk to us about animals, and I'm a big animal lover, so it's going to be fun. She's out of Sedona, Arizona. She's an expert in the animal, intuitive, and energy healing fields. She's been doing this for over 30 years. She's provided training and consultation for over 100,000 clients. She offers various programs relating to animal communication, healing, spiritual growth, and personal transformation, psychic development, clairvoyance, and chakra healing. Her website is lynnmckenzie.com. Lynn, welcome to High Road to Humanity.
Thank you so much, Nancy. It's so great to be here with you.
It's nice to be here with you too. How did you become, I almost want to say you're like an animal whisperer. How did you become so connected with the animals? Because is it your intuitive abilities? Tell us your story.
Yeah, that's great. And I would say animal whisperer is a good thing. I usually call myself an animal intuitive, but same.
I love it. Animal intuitive. Yes, yes.
I actually coined that phrase back in 2000. No one used it. I was like one of the first people on the internet in this field.
Okay.
And now there's something like 4 million hits on that name. But basically, I was born loving animals. I had like an instant affinity for them when I came out of the womb, and it just grew and grew. And then as a teen, I became horse crazy. I mean, we didn't have a lot of animals either. I had to beg for finally to get one dog or one cat. And my parents finally let us get a dog when I was in 4th grade. Right. But I mean, it wasn't like I had them all around me living with me. I mean, I found them wherever I could. I kept every cat that went by the door. I'd pick it up and tell my mom it was a stray. Can we keep it? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, they live 3 doors down or whatever.
Yeah.
She'd go, no, that's somebody's cat, but.
Well, you have a horse story to tell. I mean, would you tell us that? Would you mind?
Horse stories.
I know.
Which horse story do you mean? The one?
Well, the one.
Sarah?
Yeah, the one that you talk about how you became connected with the animals and you were like 14 or 15.
Oh yeah, okay, that's Jasmine. That's
Jasmine, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I became, one day my friend and I were riding our bikes out in the country, just for something to do. And we were like in grade 7 or something, or I think, and I don't remember, somewhere around then. And we're riding along and we stop our bikes and she looks over at this horse farm and she goes, that's what we should do. Get a job looking after horses, and like, I'm like, that was like right out of left field. Right? And I go,
Mhm.
I'm like, how are we going to do that? And she's like, well, work in exchange for riding and it'll be great. So, we started knocking on people's doors and asking them if we could work on their farm for free. Like most people would go, yeah, yeehaw.
Yeah, right?
Two
Yeah.
people to work, to muck stalls out and stuff. Anyways, so we ended up doing that and riding. And then I ended up becoming horse crazed in no time at all. And then I, got a real job where I got paid even at a very young age so I could save up for a horse. And I kept telling my mom and dad I wanted to buy a horse. We lived in the city and they kept saying, you're not buying a horse. Like, no way. And then eventually what happened was one day I saved every penny. I didn't spend like $1 of the money I made at that job because I was so goal driven about
You were determined to get the horse. Yeah.
I'm getting this horse no matter what. Like,
Yeah.
if I have to move out.
I love it.
And they ended up one day saying, I'd circle the horses for sale every day. And anyways, they let me get a horse eventually. So I got this horse, Jasmine, and she was like, well, my riding instructor at the time said, don't buy any of the horses you're seeing in the paper. I'll find you a horse. And he just called the local horse dealer. He was kind of not the most, he was, he wasn't high end. Let's just put it that way.
Okay.
And he just said, I'll get you a good horse,
Right.
like don't make a mistake by buying one out of the paper. Well, his idea of a good horse was he called the local horse dealer who showed up with this big truck and they were all jammed on like sardines, like,
I know, I read that. I was like,
and,
oh, how sad.
And I mean, he literally picked the one closest to the back because it was the easiest and pulled her off. And
Oh my God.
goes, here's your horse. And of course, I was so excited I was getting a horse. I didn't care. But she wasn't probably even broke, really. I mean, she would rear up and almost fall over backwards. But in our time together, and I talk about how to me she looked like the most beautiful gleaming show horse, yet she was, really kind of rough and she was a long.
But she had a beautiful mane. You said she had a beautiful black mane.
Yeah.
And a beautiful tail. I remember that.
She was a sooty buckskin, but at the time I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
But she looked like a dark bay, but less reddish than a bay horse. But she had dapples and stuff, and they came out better as she got fed better. But we had this amazing time together, and we rode all through the trails, and we jumped bareback, and I think I taught myself how to jump riding bareback out in the middle of nowhere, which is probably pretty dangerous, but I was young and
You were a kid, you didn't know. That's probably better.
We galloped down the middle of the road, whatever, we did whatever we wanted.
Oh my gosh.
But I really believe that through her I learned, I really enhanced and picked up on my psychic abilities in a huge way. And because horses communicate like wind through a herd in the wild, so whenever when there's a group of horses together, it just flows right through whoever's there. Right. And I became one of them basically. Wow. And learned that language, and we had a really great time.
As you're telling this, and I don't think I've thought about this in years, I'm a real estate broker and I sell a lot of land. And at one point, and you said you were just here in New Mexico, and there's a place, if you know New Mexico, off of I-25 near the San Felipe Pueblo back there, and there are wild horses that run still to this day. Yes. And there's been a lot of, I don't even know what happened to them. For years, people were trying to save them, but there's a pack. There used to be, I bet they're still there, that run, and you'd see them every once in a while. And I always thought that was really cool. It was like they were free. Yeah.
One of my best friends is a horse photographer of wild horses, and she goes a lot to Nevada and Utah, and she's been to Sable Island in Nova Scotia, where they have horses on an island that you have to get to by a plane.
Great. I love it. I love it. Well, you said, I love your book. And you guys, this is really a good book that she wrote. She talks about animals, and some people talk to animals. She says, I like this. You put all these quotes. Some people talk to animals, not many listen though. That's the problem. And that's a quote from A.A. Mill. That's the truth, isn't it?
Yeah, actually, someone that I know, Sam Horn, she's an author herself of many books, and when she read it and wrote a book review for me on Amazon, and she used that quote because she said,
Yeah.
really, that's the thread, like this, that's the thread that runs through this whole thing. And it's even more than just listening to animals. It's listening in general and opening and awakening to what is available to us to make our lives better and make the animals' lives better.
Well, and what I like about what you have to say in your book, and I find it really interesting, animals have souls. They're just like us. All animals have souls. And we don't, I think a lot of us get that and connect, but some of us, I don't think, realize it.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And that essence that they are, which is their soul, it doesn't end with the ending of the physical either. It continues on. And I mean, when we learn that and we open to that, it does make losing them when that time, that dreaded time comes, we can still have a connection with them in the afterlife. And that's
Yes.
really amazing.
Well, it is. And I have a cat that died recently, and a kitty, and she's around. I know she is, because we were really tight. We were really close. And so I know she's around. So I believe you. They're here. You say they're here to guide and teach us. And talk about that for a second before we go to commercial break. We got about 2 minutes.
Okay. So basically, I believe one of their missions, and the mission of those that choose to partner with us, especially, they can be very much our guides. They can be our spirit guides. They can help us. They can teach us. It's like they're deep spiritual beings that can impart amazing wisdom. The subtitle of my book is "Awaken to the Transformative Wisdom of Your Companion Animal to Activate Your Soul's Highest Calling." So I truly believe that those who come to us have this amazing wisdom to share, and they they teach us, they guide us, they heal us, they do all of the things that I broke this book down into, which we can talk about when we come back.
That sounds great. Thank you. Yeah, you guys, the book, it's called Bark, Neigh, Meow, Awaken to the Transformative Wisdom of Your Companion Animal to Activate Your Soul's Highest Calling. It's by Lynn, McKenzie, and this is Nancy Yearout. This is High Road to Humanity, and we will be right back. Nancy Yearout, and this is High Road to Humanity, and I'm here today with Lynn McKenzie. I'm so glad you joined me. I want to ask you a question, because I've been starting to do this, so I guess I'm just going to put myself out there and ask you, do you connect with nature spirits?
Yes, absolutely. I read a book. I mean, just from my training alone, and I don't know if you know Lilydale in upstate New York, but I used to go there all the time, and to me, that's like one of the places that's ripest with nature spirits.
Oh, really? Okay.
Well, I find it is, and I've always been a lover of Ted Andrews. I've read all his books, and he had a real detailed book on nature spirits that I probably read 20 or 30 years ago.
Okay.
And
thank you.
anyways,
I'll have to check it out.
And I believe that, connecting with any part of nature is the same as connecting with animals or communing, whatever you want to call it. And the animals are also, and I used to have a line of flower essences in my business, and that's all about the spirit of the plants and flowers, etc. So I'm really into that, and I believe that animals really respond well to that as well.
That's funny. Kat Young was on the show, and we did a show about cats, and she said that there were so many. She talked about the Bach flower remedies and how that worked out, and I thought that was really interesting. We do have a soul connection with our animals. Every animal that I've ever had, and from the time I was little, I grew up on a farm in Ohio, believe it or not, and we always had kittens. We always had dogs. And I had a pony when I was little, and it's. I don't know. Some of us have that connection. We can feel it right away. It's just like they're people. And it's just like you say, they come into your life, and I'll just throw this out there. And, this cat that I have now, I found her, but she has been with me through some tough times. And it's almost like God sent her as my little comfort animal. Like, she knows, all animals do, when you're upset. And she's been like my rock. Talk about that.
Yeah, so I absolutely believe that, and animals can, just like humans, animals can come to us for a season, a reason, or a lifetime, or many lifetimes. I connect with many people and animals whose souls are kind of traversing time and over time in lifetimes. But,
Yeah.
I believe we all have soul agreements with our animal companions, and they're very sacred agreements that are made before we even come to this plane. And so what we need is usually provided for us in the form of companion animals, etc. So when we, when like, I think it's just divine timing that this kitty is there to help you through whatever it is that you're going through. And animals
Mhm.
are hugely supportive in that way, oftentimes more than humans are.
They are. You know what? I thought about this today. I like my cat more than I like most people. I hate to say that to you and I like the animals, and I hate to say that out loud, but it's true. I have a tighter connection with my animals than I have with a lot of people. Do you?
Yep. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And most of the people in my fold, I have tons and tons of students in my training programs, and I mean, they feel exactly the same.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things that is I don't know. See, the thing about animals is they don't really ask for too much in advance in return, and
Mhm,
they're one of the few beings that literally accepts us exactly how we are. Number one,
mhm,
and number
mhm.
two, they just give us this unconditional love that I don't think any human is capable of the same kind of
That's
unconditional
what it
love
is.
as
That's
animals.
what it is, isn't it? It's the
Yep.
unconditional love.
And they accept us. I mean, you could look any way, dress any way,
They
stay
don't
whatever,
care.
you know, they just
It's
like you. They just
they
love, it's
yeah,
so
when you
funny because when I was in Santa Fe last week, my I had my dog. I was looking after someone's cats, and they're much huger than my 3-pound dog. And she was at a dog sitter's here because with COVID and stuff, and she's young. She's only ever been to the dog sitters once, and I want her to be able to do it because I have elderly family in Canada that I have to go visit and stuff.
right,
So she needs to be able to be alone with, well, not alone, but with a dog sitter once in a while. So it's so funny because my dog is so attached to me, and I felt bad leaving her, but
right.
Margot, the girl who looked after her, when we were texting the whole time, and she's like, she's just glued to me, like, which is exactly what she would do to me, but she just transferred it to her while I was gone. And
Oh,
it was so
okay.
funny because when I walked in the door, she'd been glued to Margot the whole time. And I walked in the door and she was all over me and so happy that I was home. And Margot was calling her and she wouldn't even turn and look at
She
Margot.
wouldn't look. She was
Meanwhile,
fickle
she'd
at
be
that
sleeping
point.
on her head, and but they're funny.
Well, I think it's really interesting what you said, and I just want to get this thought out. You don't think of animals, you think if you have soul connections with people and that you maybe came into this lifetime to work things out with other people, but you never really think about the animals and that you have a connection with them. And when you were talking about being connected, it's a soul connection.
Mhm.
That it's such a cool thing. And you say animals connect deeply with us, but it can take us time to realize it on a conscious level. And is that what you teach?
Yeah, I mean, I teach people how to, like, I believe everybody has the ability
Right.
to learn this and to connect on a deeper level. And it's going to look different for everybody because we come into this world so different, and we have such different experiences leading up to whenever we decide to start thinking about this and working on it. But I
Mhm.
do. And, in my book, I broke it up into sections specifically. I tried to make it easy for anybody to read this book. And,
Mhm.
I gave like 3 stories about how animals are partners with us and how they teach us that way. And then how animals are teachers for us and how they're healers. And then how they're like catalysts and bridges. I know I missed one of them in there somewhere. Um, partners, teachers, guides. Oh yeah, I knew.
Yeah.
I wrote the
Well,
book and I can't even remember. But yeah, like they come and they form different roles. And one animal can be all 6 of those roles, obviously, and at different times is a different part of that role. But I wanted people to see how deeply they do teach us and impact us. And
mhm.
us connecting in is it's like an innate thing within us, and it's sometimes we just need that little bit of a tweak to help us do it and understand. And I always believe that once you know what's possible, you can make that happen for yourself.
Yeah. You guys, she wrote this book. It's very cool. At the end of each book, she gives you the lesson. What I thought was really interesting, and I've never seen this before, so I marked the page, page 35. I always talk about the energy of us and the
Yes.
auras, but you have the auras of the animal. Look at this, you
Yes.
guys. And I never thought of it that way, and I know better. But I thought that was really cool that you did that because they have auras just like we do.
Yes.
It's really interesting, and I didn't realize that. You tell a story in the book. You talk about is Naji. There's a story about Naji. You want
Yes.
to tell that story if you don't mind?
Yes. So Nagi is a cat that a client of mine, funny enough, she now lives in New Mexico as well.
Oh,
She
how
lives in
funny.
Texas. But she was living, she was living in, she was young. She just finished university, I believe, and she was living in New Hampshire. And
Mhm.
her and her boyfriend decided to go on a trip. She had a Native American mentor there, and she had been immersing herself in that culture. She's a quarter Native American herself, and she wanted to kind of reconnect with her roots a little bit. So she'd been doing a lot of studying there. And then she decided to go on this road trip cross country to the west to, where to really take in the vibes of what Native American culture is all about. So she, interestingly enough, they were just getting ready to leave, and for some reason she walked into into a store, and they had kittens, and one of the kittens touched her finger, and it was like, electrified. It was like something went off within her, and she's like, we're going on a road trip kind of thing,
Yeah,
what
I
the
can't take a
last
cat
thing in
with
the world,
me.
and sleeping in a tent or under the stars. Not an easy place to
Sure.
be with a cat,
Yeah,
but she did.
yeah.
And it was an amazing story about how, it was their trials and tribulations. At one point, Nagi got lost, how she named Nagi, and actually there was a part in the book. Well, I don't know if I should say this on an interview. There was a bit more to the story, but because of possible implied appropriation, I wasn't allowed to share everything that I wanted to
Well,
share.
tell me, you can say it on my show. It's okay. Tell me. Tell me
So,
the real
so
deal.
basically, there was this Native American fellow named John Fire Lame Deer who wrote a book,
Okay.
and I actually quote him in one of the
I know, I saw that, but
and I can't
continue.
remember if it was that chapter or not. But anyhow,
Yeah.
she ended up having one of his books because her Native American mentor had been gone and studied with him and brought her back a book. So after she did end up getting the cat because she couldn't stop thinking about it, and her boyfriend just said, let's go do it. So she was trying to decide what to name the cat, and the cat was running around their apartment and kind of hiding somewhere. And she was going through the glossary of terms at the back of the book, and she saw Nagi, and the way he had Nagi described was like soul, spirit, and essence, and some more stuff like that, which is, it's technically not what most Native Americans, the way they would describe that word exactly. But it was that way in John Fire Lame Deer's book. I actually had the book in my hand to check it. Anyhow,
Yeah.
so her boyfriend was trying to get the cat, and she just went, Nagi, come, and Nagi came flying along, and he goes, how did that happen? And she goes, he knows that's his name. Anyways, they had just an amazing time together, an amazing connection. They were together for many, many years. Even her going over to Europe for a couple of years and leaving Nagi with friends and still connecting with him on a regular basis, probably daily. And then coming back, and she ended up settling in Taos, and just a real, like, that whole part about like marrying Nagi in with her Native American studies and what her training was for her mentor. Somehow she just awakened and was able to see the auras, and just it's a phenomenal story, and still to this day she's connected to that.
Yeah, and the quote, I want to read it here. All creatures exist for a purpose. Even an ant knows what that purpose is, not with its brain, but somehow it knows. And that's from Lame Deer, Seeker of Visions. Is that
Yes.
what you're talking about?
Yeah. And he's a full-blooded Lakota.
I love it. Hey, we got to go to commercial break. This is Nancy Earl. This is High Road to Humanity. I'm here today with Lynn McKenzie. Her book is called Bark, Neigh, Meow. We'll be right back. Hi, Road to Humanity. I'm here today with Lynn McKenzie, and she's got lots of stories to tell us. Lynn, tell us a cool story. You said you had one to tell us. Share with us.
Yeah. So in this book, in my book, there's like, I guess 18 chapters, I think 18 or 19. I can't even remember.
I'm looking. 19, there's 19.
Yeah, there's 3 in each section, except in the last section, there's 4 because one made its way in on its own,
Yeah.
which wasn't planned. But only 3 of them are actually my stories about my own animals, my own life, and the others are my clients and experiences that they've had on their own or with me. But the one story that I think is really going to be helpful to people is so my story of Lucero. Lucero is an Andalusian stallion. He's now crossed over.
Okay.
I'm still connected with him in the spirit realm. But
Okay.
Lucero I call him an ascended master of the equine realm.
I
And
love
he
it.
is kind of between him and Jigs, my golden retriever, who I wrote about in chapter 4 and Lucero's chapter 7. They were the 2 that really cemented this career for me. And it really brought me back to what my soul's divine mission is and what my highest calling is here on this planet.
Okay.
And after taking a myriad of courses and everything you can think of that metaphysically, spiritually, healing related, psychic related, I ended up hearing about a training for animal communication. And this was way back, 30 years ago. I hadn't even heard it was a thing. I was in Toronto selling real estate, spending all my money and time on side courses to learn more and, fulfill my mission.
Yeah.
And I went and took this training. And to make a long story short, I didn't have a photo of my dog with me. And this was before cell phones, we had them, but they were, they weighed 20 pounds and they were
Right. I remember they were like blocks. Yeah.
yeah, they were attached in most cases. So anyhow, I didn't have any photos of him. And she handed me a stack of photos. I flipped through them till almost the last one. There must have been 90 or 120 or something photos in this stack. And this, I kept seeing really cute animals, but I was getting no. And then I got to this horse and it was like illuminated right off the page at me. So I ended up connecting in with him, and it was like a huge breakthrough. It was like a dam broke, and that it was like I just had this opening with to be able to channel. And he basically let me know he was one of my key spirit guides. He was there to help me. He was there to help those that I helped, and he would be a part of. He helped healers basically.
It was just the picture, or was it the animal itself?
No, it was just the picture. We were learning the distance work. We had this weekend, we were at a horse farm, and we had done all the in-person, and now the teacher was teaching us distance work.
Remote. Okay.
It's pretty much all I do now and teach now. But back in those days, that was like a different thing 30 years ago.
Right. Well, yeah, because we talk about remote viewing with
Yes.
people. And so it's the same thing. I love it that you talk about this. So that's how you're able to connect with somebody who has an animal issue. You can get on Zoom and you can pick it up. Is that right?
Do I don't even get on Zoom because I'm just kind of old fashioned.
I love it.
I usually use my phone.
Sure.
But the interesting thing is I was in Toronto, my first paid client in this business, I advertised in a North American magazine, and my first client was in New Mexico, actually.
Oh my gosh.
That was in 2000 before the internet.
I think you need to come here.
It was in the 90s. I love New Mexico. I do think it's very enchanted and magical.
It is.
But anyways, Lucero just became when I drove home from that weekend, which was like a 4-hour drive, I don't even feel like my tires touched the ground.
Oh
and
my
Lucero
God.
has been an active part of my life, his spirit, his energy. I even got to go meet him in the physical plane. His person let me come. He even called a really interesting meeting. One day while I was in Sedona years ago, I get this email from his person because I'd met her and, she knew how connected we were. And he's called meetings of healers, him from spirit when he was alive and since he crossed over. And she emailed me and she said, Lynn, I just want to tell you that Lucero's called a meeting and it's on a Friday, November the whatever, from 4 till 7 p.m. And I know you're in Arizona and I know there's no way you'll be able to come. He was very specific about the timing. And I just want you to be with us in spirit. And I wrote her back and said, Cheryl, you won't believe this. I'm coming to Toronto. I'm teaching. I have meetings on Thursday. I have meeting on Friday afternoon. I'm free Friday night. I'm teaching for 3 more days and I fly out. So he called the meeting at the only available hours I had.
That you had.
While I was there. And she was
I got chills.
Oh my God. You're supposed to be here. So I was able to go to that, and it was just the
Well,
stuff.
what does he say? Like, what's he say in the meeting? Like, what did he tell you?
You know what? That particular meeting was all about healing, earth healing, and healing the waters and healing the environment. And it's a long time ago now, but I mean, what he really does for most people is help them open up, awaken, have their breakthrough, and kind of help people break that dam themselves and help them heal other beings. I mean, it's all about us being happier, healthier, healed, whole, and more intuitive, basically.
I love it. I think that's wonderful that you have this connection. Now, what about birds? I'm really big on birds, and I have a lot of birds around my house. A lot of I feed the birds and I feed the hummingbirds. And so, but it's cool. I'm sure everybody has this experience. I'm sure it's not just me. Like when the hummingbirds, feeder's empty, of course they come to the window and they're like, hey, and they stand there and tell me. And the same thing with the birds. I've got a mama who lives back here and she's got a bunch of babies and, but we have a thing, we kind of communicate. Or if I see a roadrunner, that's always a sign for me. I have roadrunners that live back here.
Yes, I do
So
too.
yeah, so talk about the birds a little bit because they're always giving me signs,
Oh yeah, the birds are huge messengers. I don't know if you got this far yet on the book because I know it's a lot for you to read, but the chapter 19 is about birds. And
oh no, I didn't. Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
We'll talk
19
about
is
it.
called A Winged Ambassador.
Okay.
And
I have to read it now.
yeah,
Talk about that.
18 and 19 are my favorite chapters. I mean, and different
Okay.
people say different things, but what happened was as I was going through this book and just writing the stories, and people who are students of mine, I interviewed them to get more details, about things. And somehow, as I was going through the book, there was this theme of red-tailed hawk all the way through the book.
I saw that, the red-tailed hawk, when you were riding the horse.
Yeah, well, and it goes, and one of my clients whose horse crossed, as her horse was crossing, it leapt up in the air, and at the same time, a red-tailed hawk that was up on the on a pole swooped down as the horse jumped up, and it was like took the horse's spirit off to the spirit realm. I mean, there's more.
So there's a connection. There's a connection.
Yeah, there's so many, and there's another one with a dog that that's in one of the other chapters. But so I was sitting here at my desk writing away, and I mean, writing a book is hard work. You got to focus, you got to be blinders on, and especially when you're getting down to the end of it all. And there's this red-tailed hawk, two of them going around and around and around, and they just would not stop. And I look right out sliding doors at a mountain, and they wouldn't stop. And they, basically I realized after partway through, I'm like, it was my Maltese Carly who crossed over around on the solstice 2 years ago. Okay. Well, yeah, a year and a half ago on the solstice. So she was the sweetest little thing. And it was her coming to visit me and through the hawk, but it was like almost like I was just ignoring it because I'm trying to get.
Yeah, you were busy.
Trying to, and so anyways, then I realized that hawk really wanted a place in this. But basically all birds can be messengers. They can be teachers, healers, all of the things, catalysts for us. And oftentimes beings in spirit come to us through birds.
Yes, I want to say that. I want to stop you a second. My father was dying and I was in Texas and he was in New Mexico, but I didn't realize he was at, like the whole week before, I didn't realize he was to that point. I hadn't gotten the call or anything, but that whole, like for 2 weeks, I had this bright yellow bird, and it would come to the window and it would peck on my window over and over and over. And I kept thinking, why is this bird doing this? Are there bugs? Is he trying to eat the bugs? What is he doing? But he didn't. He just kept pecking and pecking and pecking on my window. And then not too long after that, I got the call and I communicated with my dad. But I think it was my father coming to me through that bird to say, hey, call me because I'm getting ready to take off and I want to say goodbye. That's what I got from that. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, and don't be surprised, Anna, if I'm sure you already have connected with him or
Yes.
had him come back through birds.
Yeah, he
Don't be
has.
surprised if it keeps happening. Like whenever, and some people say, especially cardinals. I say,
Yes, me too.
whatever,
Yes.
whatever being comes is the message. It could be anything. The day
Yeah.
my Jigs, who's a huge catalyst, he's in chapter 4. He's a huge catalyst for this work I do.
Right.
It was him and then Lucero. The day he crossed over, which was September 10th, 2007, my parents were in Ontario, Canada. I was in British Columbia on Vancouver Island. And I basically, we knew it was coming. We didn't know what day it was going to be, but we knew the time was coming.
Mhm.
And they were at a cottage up north because they live in the city, and it was fall, and they decided to go up to rent this cottage, and it had a phone, and I phoned them to tell them. And my mom said, we had just been out on a walk and we saw a bird that we've never seen before, and we can't even find it in the bird book. And it was like communing with them. And she said, I bet, to herself, I bet it's Jigs, and I bet Jigs has, crossed over, and I bet that's him.
Oh my
coming
gosh.
spirit. And I
Yeah.
mean, my parents are pretty open to all this stuff because my mom, well, both of them, but
Yeah.
it was really cool. But definitely, and red-tailed hawks, one of the things that I thought was interesting was how they kind of just forced their way into being a chapter.
Into your book. Yeah, I love it.
It was so meant to be. It was so synchronistic. It was so just perfect. But they're all about expanding our vision, expanding our psychic intuitive abilities. And I talk all about it in the chapter and how it relates to the whole book and to the reader and everything. So you definitely have to read that chapter.
I know, you guys check this book out. It's very well written. It's very interesting. She tells stories. She talks all about the animals. I love this. This is really, really good.
Can
Hey,
I just
you guys,
say one thing?
Sure.
I named it after Eat, Pray, Love.
Oh, did you really?
Because I think of it instead of an external journey, although Eat, Pray, Love was an external and internal, this is really about an internal journey,
Oh,
of
wow.
people and how it really, there is some similarities, in,
Yeah.
I mean, it's probably a stretch, but that's where
No, I think it's great. Hey, we got to go to commercial break, you guys. I'm here today with Lynn McKenzie. You got to check out her book. We're going to talk more about animals when we come back. This is High Road to Humanity, and we'll see you in a minute. So you're out. This is High Road to Humanity. I'm here today with Lynn McKenzie, and she's written this fabulous book. It's called Bark, Neigh, Meow. And I asked her about chapter 10, and it's Healers in Fur. And talk about this, if you would, please.
Yeah,
Lynn.
so this chapter covers a variety of situations, and one of them is I had, and they're just samples of what is possible with any animal. I just had to think of some stories that came to mind, basically, and find the people that were willing to sign the release to let me put their story in the book.
Right.
And I had a client who had a Doberman who would, she noticed at one, in an early stage of their relationship, she noticed a Doberman would really sniff one of her moles intensely. And she was one of those people who got moles all over her. Just that was her body.
That was her thing. Yeah.
And the Doberman would just sniff, like right on one mole. Meanwhile, there'd be 100 moles. And so she went to the dermatologist and said, is there something wrong with this mole? And he'd do a, look at it, do a biopsy, whatever, and go, yes. Like, and he's thinking, how the heck did you know which one was which?
Yeah.
You're not a doctor, whatever.
Yeah.
And so throughout their lives, whenever her dog would alert her to one mole, she'd go to the doctor and he would check it out, and it would be one that would have to come off, whereas 99% of them were just benign, but some of them weren't. So the dog could actually smell the ones that were trouble and was alerting her without any training or anything. I mean, animals can certainly be trained to sniff out cancer and things like that. I cite some studies in my book about that. So there's that part of how animals are healers. But, I had another client who had a dog, that 2-year-old dog, that actually stopped eating. And she had a lot of dogs. It was a couple. They had a lot of dogs, and they would feed their dogs in the crates, because just so each dog wouldn't eat each other's food, right? When you
is that why they did it? I'm like,
okay, 10 dogs, one dog could eat everybody's food. And
yeah, okay. Okay.
So, I mean, I don't even think she locked the crates. But she put the food in at the end of the crate, and each dog knew which crate was its and own.
Mhm.
And so her dog wouldn't eat the food, but was guarding the end of the crate, not letting in, because of course, whoever finished always wanted to go eat what's left over. And so she kind of wanted the food, but she wouldn't eat it. So she took the dog to the vet, and they ran some blood work, and there was a couple things out, but nothing was conclusive for the vet to say, it's this or that. So he sent them to the teaching hospital at the university to get further testing. And the dog had a bunch of testing. And I mean, they usually work gradually and work their way up in invasiveness and expense of testing, so they're not giving you a bill of $10,000 right off the bat.
Right.
And like everything they were trying wasn't changing. And finally, my client Wendy looked at the vets at the university and said, I'm calling my animal intuitive. And they kind of all probably rolled their eyes. This was quite a lot of years ago. And they probably, she said they rolled their eyes and kind of went, yeah, good luck with that kind of thing. Like thinking she's crazy, like,
Right.
do whatever you have to do, but we think you're nuts. So, and when I took that one, and the dog's name was Ocean, when I talked to Ocean, the first thing out of Ocean's mouth in a very meek, mild voice, instantaneously was, it's my duodenum. And I mean,
What
I know
is it?
it's
my,
duodenum. Some people say duodenum, but the dog said duodenum. So I'm just telling you the way she said it.
okay.
And
Okay.
I had heard of a duodenum before, but I mean, I'm not an anatomy and physiology expert. I'm not a veterinarian. I knew it was somewhere in that digestive system somewhere, but she kept saying, and I'm like, so tell me some more. And she's like, lady, it's my duodenum, so I have Wendy on the phone with me as I'm doing the reading, and I say, Wendy, she's telling me it's her duodenum. Does that make any sense? And maybe that's how it's said in Canada, even too, who knows? But Wendy goes, yeah, actually that could make, and Wendy was a nurse, so it was helpful because she knew more about anatomy and physiology than me. And she goes, well, it could make sense because that's kind of around where the stomach empties out. So she goes back to them and says, my animal intuitive says it's her duodenum. And they're like still rolling their eyes going, yeah, right, whatever, and so they decided not to do the endoscopy right away. They wanted to try one more thing for another week or two, and that didn't work. And then they did the endoscopy, and lo and behold, she had a bacteria in her duodenum, which is a bacteria that only humans get, not even animals. And
weird.
It was some kind of something pylori. When a veterinarian interviewed me for her podcast, she told me exactly what it was, because she goes, I know what that is, and she named it. And of course, went in one ear and out the other for me, because I'm not a vet. But that dog knew what was wrong with her and was able to tell me. And then I've got other stories of healing, I've got one more story. Do you want me to tell the other one?
Yes. Well, I just want to ask you a question before you tell the story. Do you have, I just wonder if we've evolved enough. Do you have veterinarians who will call you?
Oh, yeah.
I think that's amazing.
No,
that's great.
I have tons of veterinarians in my training program.
That's so wonderful.
I have, even in Ontario, where I'm from Toronto, and even in Ontario, they had me speaking at the veterinary technicians conference, like in the 90s.
Oh my God.
In like the early 2000s. So 20 years ago, I was speaking at veterinary technicians conferences. I've had veterinarians in my fold since the 90s. So,
see, I'd rather call you than go to the vet.
Well, I always say to people that, it's not a replacement. It's an
addition.
It's a good addition, because you know what? I mean, I'm not a vet, and if something's really serious, I like to help people help their veterinarians by saying what the dog's saying, or horse is saying, or cat's saying, or whatever. But and some animals share more than others about what's going on with them, but so I always say it's not a replacement, but it's a really good complement, I'd love if every veterinarian, so many of them are open to this kind of thing, but I'd love it if every veterinarian started being open to this stuff, as well as what they do.
Right. Well, and it's the same thing as doctors. Doctors can be intuitive, and veterinarians can be intuitive when it comes to animals, just like doctors can be intuitive when it comes to people. And, I love medical intuitives. I just went to one recently. And so what you do is just a blessing and a gift. And I'm so glad that you're using your gift. I mean, it's amazing. Yeah. Tell us your story. What's the next story you want to tell us?
If I remember, there might be 3 or 4 stories in that chapter. But one of the stories was of a client of mine who her daughter was going through a divorce, had
Okay.
some rescue cats, like some really, like feral. She had one particular feral rescue cat that was like really kind of difficult but somehow had an affinity for her. Anyway, she was diagnosed with a very late stage cancer at a
Oh,
very traumatic time for her already,
oh, wow.
and ended up passing. So her mother is in my
Oh,
training and is my client. And so not only did she have the passing of her daughter to deal with, but she took her daughter's cat on. And this was a cat that like nobody would take on. You know what I mean? Like her daughter was a saint for taking this cat on because it was so wild and so gnarly at the
difficult.
time,
Yeah.
just not
Yeah.
into people, not into. And so this woman, very sweet woman, had her own cats at home, and she had to bring this cat in, and it was really difficult. Excuse me. And in trying to help her own cat, in trying to help that cat and her own cats and help everything adjust, because it just wasn't working well. She ended up finding my training program, coming into my training program to try to figure out how to help the cat, right? But in helping the cat, she really did help herself. Like the healing she had, there was massive healing for the cat, and the cat's now like a cuddle bug and gets on her lap to be brushed when she sits down in the evening. But she was able to heal so much of her own grief and her own trauma, as at the same time she was learning to heal the cat. So this is the thing, like we think we're rescuing them or we're healing them, but really they're healing us.
They're healing us.
So it's such an amazing mutual symbiosis, and that happens. And there may be another story in that chapter, but I can't remember off the top of my head right now.
Yeah, no, I just think that's wonderful. I talk about on the show, I haven't been to the zoo in years, and I went a couple weeks ago, and it was really hard for me because I'm a different person than I used to be. And I went to the zoo and I just wanted to free them. And I'm like, why do we do this? And why do we have all these animals caged? We shouldn't have this anymore. It should be, I almost feel like it's time that we don't do this anymore, that it's not necessary
Yeah.
for us to keep animals caged like they are. It almost feels inhumane. What do you think? I know it's a touchy subject, but I'm just telling you what comes from my heart.
No, I don't find it easy either. And years ago, somebody asked me to come to the zoo, and I don't know if it was, I can't even remember if it was someone related to the zoo. It certainly wasn't, upper management at the Toronto Zoo. They had just made a new environment for the gorillas.
Yeah.
And I went to that zoo and I was communing with the gorillas. It just about killed me.
That's what I'm saying.
You know what happens in a little area like that? The gorillas will strip every leaf off the tree. So they ended up electrifying the trees, so the gorillas couldn't get on them. It looked beautiful for the humans, but I just what I was feeling from those gorillas just about killed me. I felt terrible about the whole thing. So it's not my favorite thing, and
I just would like us to get to a point as society that we don't do this anymore. I just think it's inhumane to do this kind of stuff. It's ridiculous. I just want to thank you for what you do. I could talk to you for another hour. I love the animals, and God bless you for what you do. Now, if people want to get in touch with you, if they need help with their animals, how can they contact you?
So the best place is lynnmckenzie.com, and that's LYNNMCKENZIE.com.
Right.
And I do have a free training in the navigation on the top of my website that anyone can get to try to learn it. And there's also my book page is there. It's under lynnmckenzie.com/books with an S on the end. And that'll take you to all the information. And you can read a couple chapters of my book free there.
But I'd love to have you back. I just think you have so much, you're just a wealth of information when it comes to the animals. Oh, God bless you. Well, we got to get out of here for today, but you guys, her book is called Bark, Neigh, Meow, Awaken to the Transformative Wisdom of Your Companion Animal to Activate Your Soul's Highest Calling. And it is a phenomenal book, by the way. Lynn McKenzie, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you so much, Nancy. It's been a pleasure.
It's a pleasure. Hey, you guys, this is Nancy Earl. This is High Road to Humanity. Everybody take care of your animals, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Connect the dots and keep the motion. Can achieve your goal. Let's hit the high road.
Hey, you guys, join me next week on The High Road for more stories filled with wisdom, love, and hope for our future. Have a fabulous week, and know that by staying on the high road, you will make it to your destination. Visit my website, nancyyearout.com, where you can book a private session to learn how to tap into your own abilities. And check out my YouTube channel. It's Nancy Yearout's High Road to Humanity.
You can achieve your goal.